My name is Colin Ritchie, and I am with Voyage Audio. And today we're going to be talking about our immersive microphone capturing system. Broadcast audio is evolving. The goal has always been to create sort of larger-than-life immersive experiences in audio, but now we have the tools to, I think, really actually realize that. Beyond that, we're also seeing IP infrastructure everywhere. And so we need tools that can easily plug into these systems and go beyond sort of the old analog paradigm. These are all applications that we've supported with our immersive microphone solution, from a live broadcast on network television in Times Square to VR. So this middle picture was actually a live MLS broadcast straight to a Vision Pro headset. So when you put on the headset, you actually got the spatial audio, and as you move your head, the audio tracks with it. Also the Super Bowl, the last two Super Bowls we've supported for their immersive broadcast. When the Super Bowl was in Las Vegas, they had these mics spread out, at every set. So when they went to the Bellagio fountains, you would hear the water go as your sound bed. When you went into the stadium, you get the excitement of the crowd, and then the crowd, as they were entering the stadium as well, all in 360 Atmos. At this year's Super Bowl, they actually used this mic on the roof of the stadium to capture the jet flyover and create that sound bed, and then layered on top of that the mics from the pilot comms and other audience sound effects. So, but I think without that actual spatial bed, it's going to be really hard to sell that entire experience. And then you also get the movement, right? So when you're listening back on an Atmos system or a soundbar, you actually get that jets flying overhead depending on the camera angle, or maybe it's left to right. All possible with this type of capture system. Viewers expect immersive broadcast sort of by default. So you may not know it, but your new TV probably has Dolby Atmos or some sort of spatial sound built into it. We'll be watching a broadcast in mono and stereo and it sounds flat, but then you switch over to something that's streaming in 5.1 and so all of a sudden you're going to be immersed in that sound. It's built into the devices whether you even know it or not. And capturing this content demands accuracy, remote control, because you could have a lot of these microphones spread out throughout an entire event. And the legacy workflows just don't really scale when it comes to immersive audio capture. Think about a traditional workflow. You have your analog microphones, your cabling, your microphone preamps, your converters, and probably some sort of network interface. So with our solution, this is actually all built into the microphone itself. So as you can see, there's Dante audio networking built right into this microphone. The other really unique part of this is that you can see that it's actually an 8-capsule array. This actually picks up both direction and audio information at the same time. We know where the capsules are oriented, right? And so from that, you can either decode the audio internally in DSP inside of the microphone or in post with our plugin. That's super powerful because what that allows you to do is actually say, this broadcast is in 5.1. You actually click this microphone over into 5.1 mode, and then all of a sudden you have 5.1, including the LFE element, being sent down the Dante network. What you can do with this microphone is you can create virtual microphone polar patterns and then reject all the other audio outside of that polar pattern. You can create that cardioid pattern. And then further, if I didn't want to capture the audio from all of you, I can then rotate that around live towards the audio that you actually want to capture. Super powerful. One example of this is in college sports. There's often a marching band involved with that, and they don't necessarily know where the marching bands are going to come out onto the field. So they'll put these microphones up, the band comes out, and then, whoops, it's off center, or you need to correct for that balance. And with this type of mic, it's so easy because you can, often those broadcasts are probably in stereo or 5.1, but they'll layer different stereo signals for that sound bed, right? And you can actually create those, then spin those around and balance the sound directly from the microphone without having to send someone out and reposition the pickup. So this is our plugin. This is kind of the other half of the equation. So This would be useful when you want to work with audio in post, right? So you would record the unprocessed signals from the capsules into your DAW, like Pro Tools, Logic, or Reaper, and then you can use this plugin to decode after the fact at any time in the future. So what the plugin offers that the internal processing doesn't are actual filters made in an anechoic chamber. The internal DSP is really good, but this goes a step further that takes full advantage of the processing power in the computer. And you have a direction of arrival display, so you know where that audio is coming from, almost like an acoustic camera, right? And there's another view that, if anyone's interested in the demo, I can show you. It's a power map view. So it actually shows you the intensity of the audio coming from around the sound field to the microphone. And then again, this has all kinds of different virtual microphones, including second order mics with much tighter polar patterns that you can still move around in the sound field. It also has, mid-side decoding and then Dolby Atmos up to 7.1.4 from the plugin right now. And in live, this is the live controller, also allow you to change the orientation of the microphone. So you'll see, like in a concert setting, you can hang this microphone via the locking Neutrik EtherCon. And then to get the audio to sit correctly, you can actually account for that inverted position. So how does it all work? This is where I like to get a little technical, but I think it's pretty fun. So this mic is an ambisonic microphone. It's actually a second order ambisonic microphone, but it's easier to talk about just a first order representation. So when you internally and when you're using the ambisonics mode, those aren't actual channels you would send to your traditional mono stereo channels, right? They're a spherical representation of the sound. So what you can think of is this is actually kind of like, would be the first 4 ambisonic channels. And when it goes to decode, either in the DSP or in our plugin, it's actually taking a superposition of those, right? And this is how we can derive the different polar patterns and matrix filtering for the actual Atmos output. And these channels wouldn't necessarily correspond to your traditional mono stereo, even 5.1 channels. These are those spherical harmonic channels. You don't really need to know all that to use the microphone, but I think it's really helpful. One of the big concerns was, okay, we're going to be using this microphone outside in these different types of sporting events. How is this going to hold up in the weather? A big major test for it was throughout the SEC college football season, where they battled all kinds of different elements, rain, snow, sleet, and it performed flawlessly. So they had these microphones spread out across the venue, and the A1 was telling me that they would take the foam windscreen off and just wring out the water when they were done and then put it back up for the next game without any issues whatsoever. Building on that, they felt comfortable moving to using this at the Super Bowl and other NFL experiences. So you see, the mic up on painters' poles, but then you also see the player tunnels. So they could actually attach this to the cameras, and then as the players walk by, the audio will track. I think it's just such a cool application. Fox has been using this at their Big Noon kickoff. The A1 was telling us that they're going in locations where they were never able to really have microphones before because they never had the audio drops. But what's with the IP infrastructure everywhere, they're able to just on the fly quickly drop a microphone down where they want to capture the college kids chanting. And then we've already talked a little bit about the Super Bowl here and some of the other applications for football. Let's see if we can get this to play. I don't think we're going to actually have the audio, but what you would be hearing is these kids singing Mr. Brightside to kind of augment that broadcast and really just bring the viewer at home. It feels like you're there, chanting along with these kids, right? And so our microphone, again, was used throughout these productions every Saturday. And the application extends across all major sporting events like MLB, NBA, NHL. I think this MLB picture is kind of interesting because I'm wondering, often when they go to do these type of immersive experiences, they'll want to capture the height channels actually up higher in the stadium. And then again, what's easy is you can scale this microphone since it has Dante networking built in. So perhaps they captured the height channels above and then they had other microphones lower that they could then capture the surround channels. NBA, we've supported the All-Star games and throughout the NCAA tournament. And again, those are often, I think, mono stereo or 5.1, where they're creating those polar patterns and they're able to aim those around and maybe not capture the guy in the crowd who's yelling bad words or something like that. It's possible. We've seen some really cool applications for, this is actually the microphone up here on this pole, and they used it to actually create a virtual shotgun mic. And we've even used this just internally because you can drop our plugin directly into Premiere Pro. So you can decode this plugin and then you can follow it with your video. It doesn't necessarily have to be 360 video. It can work with 360 video, but you can it's almost like when you're reframing a 360 video to a flat representation. It's almost a very similar thing. You're creating that shotgun mic and you can actually aim it towards the speaker and just focus on that audio. Live concerts has been a big application. This is actually the engineer for Ringo Starr has been using this microphone to record all of his live concerts, and this was the live at the Ryman show. One of the coolest applications for live concert recording was, there's a picture down here, I think it's behind some literature, but it shows this microphone hanging, right? And then there was a second one of these microphones. So the first microphone was hanging more over the front of the stage, over like a solo pianist, and then the second one was more over the orchestra. And then there was a few other Schweppes spot mics. And then they would mix all those together. And then at the end of the day, they were actually able to upload that directly to Apple Music in Atmos. And then you go back to listen and you have full Atmos, with head tracking and like you're looking around. And I mean, it's really cool. It sounds like you're actually there. Like it really brings you into that experience. And then studio recording, like the ultimate drum room mic, right? And it just makes other instruments sound very natural, like they're performing in front of you. One of the cool things is that with this microphone, you may be working in mono and stereo today, which it can do with the virtual mic decoding, and then you may upgrade to Atmos later, and this mic can do all of that, either live or in post. I'd say because of that, it's sort of format agnostic, right? We could update our plugin, in 5 years to take advantage of a new format, and you would have the raw capture from this microphone and be able to go back and actually deliver in that format. And then, just the XR type formats, the AR, the VR, you're going to be covered in terms of creating spatial audio that tracks in those formats, as you look around. There's just so many fun creative possibilities. I've seen people do lots of like impulse response recordings to capture the different rooms, and then you use those in an ambisonic reverb for surround sound. I've seen these really cool like 6 degrees of freedom experiences where you have all of these mics laid out, like say in a concert hall, and then when you actually go in to listen to this, you can actually change your listening position and it'll sound like you're sitting in each of those different positions. So the future is here, right? And it scales from a single mic to, again, with the built-in Dante audio networking, you can have many mics across an event and control all of them remotely from our software. So with that, thank you from Dale Pro Audio. And if you have any questions, we'll be here throughout the show.